This is MyBlend Stories, and I'm Jeff Gerlach. Kerry Guiliano is a technology integration specialist at Oakland Schools. As part of Oakland Schools' shared services model, she works exclusively with Southfield Public Schools, helping educators to thoughtfully integrate technology for teaching and learning. Before her current role, she was a Spanish and technology teacher. Here, she got to work with a pretty incredible range of students, from young fives all the way up to 12th graders. Kerry shared her story as an educator and described her transition from a technology-using teacher to more of a blended facilitator. We also discussed her coaching relationships with teachers and how she's helping administrators to start providing professional development using blended strategies. This is her story. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Good. Do you want to use video or no?
It's kind of weird. I've found that the audio is better on audio-only calls.
Perfect.
Your audio sounds great, by the way.
You know what? I have had a lot of experience with online connecting, so
Yeah.
I found some good settings for my computer.
Yeah, it's interesting. You can be into, using technology and educational technology as much as anyone. But if you haven't specifically worked with audio, sometimes people don't really realize the different things that you need to do in order to make it sound good, right?
Right. Yeah. Oh, actually, I've just found a really nice headset that I wear.
Oh, yeah? What
Yeah.
headset is that?
I don't even know. I got it at Micro Center and it was like $10, but holy cow, it works awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah. And then you could pay like $80-$90 for a headset and have it pop all over the place, right?
I know. Well, I always think that anyone that's wearing like the iPhone headsets that you just get with the phone sound pretty good too.
That's interesting. Yeah. My colleague Brandon and I, when we started doing the Skype calls, or actually when we started doing the podcast, we were testing out a bunch of different things, just trying to see what was the best vocal quality, and went through Adobe Connect and like all these fancy, paid for professional
Right.
things, and found that Skype was the best medium, at least for what we tested, and that people talking on iPhones with their headphones sounded excellent.
Yeah, Apple's got something going for them for sure.
Yeah, the headphone I'm wearing some Apple headphones right now, and I just love as far as earbuds go. I usually don't like to put anything in my ear, but they feel so darn comfortable that it's hard to argue with it. Plus, my
Right.
hair doesn't get messed up, which is a big concern of mine.
Yeah, for sure. That's funny. Teachers are having all the kids bring in their own headsets now, and everyone's bringing in the Apple headsets from their parents,
Yeah.
which I think is great.
I mean, that makes sense. So kids all have their own headphones. I always thought it was kind of weird when I was a teacher and I had a set of like 40 headphones, right? And there's something weird
Right.
about headphones being communal.
I had a student when I was teaching come up to me and say, my parents just want to make sure that you clean these headphones every time
Yeah.
a student uses them. And, I was a specials teacher, so I had at any given time 12 classes a day. And I'm like, no, I don't. You're welcome to bring your own in. But plus they were leather, so in my opinion. But I'm like, man, I could never do that.
There's a big difference between the over-the-ear headphones with the leather pads and like if you had a classroom. I had a classroom set of earbuds because they were the cheapest things I could buy out of my own pocket.
Ooh,
And
right.
so I did it was a ritual to add an extra 10 minutes to cleanup time.
Yeah,
And
that makes sense.
everyone gets a Clorox wipe and wipe it off and put it away. But having kids bring their own just makes a lot more sense with something you're comfortable with and you can put it away. And I hated cleanup time. Like anytime you had to adjust for more time for using certain things. It just bugged the heck out of me.
Yeah, I get it.
So, who the heck are you and what do you do?
Oh, so do you want me to like say my name?
You can say your name, whatever the answer to that question is.
My name is Kerry Guiliano, and for for the last 2 years or so, I have been a technology integration specialist, and I work with for Oakland Schools. But I am working in their shared services model under their technology services department, and I'm contracted out by Southfield Public Schools. So I hardly ever make it up to Waterford to Oakland Schools. So I'm based in Southfield Public. I have an office here. I work directly with their division of instruction, and I basically just work with the teachers and the admin to service these students. It's been a really cool experience. Before I took this position, I worked for Flat Rock Community Schools in Wayne County, and I was a Spanish and technology teacher, and I've basically taught all grades. I've taught young fives to grade 12.
Wow.
It was a cool experience, that's for sure. Cool is an understatement, I guess. The only grade I haven't taught is second, but I think I can figure it out. But yeah, it was definitely neat. I was hired in as a K-5 Spanish teacher, and we didn't have a curriculum at all. So my whole teaching career, I taught for 4 years there. I never taught with anything that the district provided. It was a really neat experience because I could really just build my own path, I guess, and structure it so that these kids were building off of each year. At a certain point, though, they got rid of the K-5 Spanish program and moved me into a tech position. So I taught 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade technology, and that was it was awesome. I mean, the kids were just leaps and bounds. They were just going nuts with the technology that we were using and, the learning theories, and just, it was really cool. And then I moved into a 6-8 Spanish position that same year that I moved into 3rd, 4th, and that was pretty cool to see the kids that I had been teaching in the elementary at the middle school, so I knew where they were at. And my last year before I left, which really helped me move into the position that I have today, is I taught at the high school and still 3-5 tech, but I taught web design and app design, and that was a cool experience. I've never designed websites or apps before, so that was interesting to say the least. I definitely now have a very good understanding, at least on the web design side, of XHTML and basic CSS, but I can, code, I guess.
Yeah.
And they had just started implementing iPads into the district, so I moved into an iPad sort of instructional role with the teachers. So what we would do is, so 2 years ago I went to McCall when I was still teaching, and I was sat in on, I think it was Mercy High School in this area, and they said, why are you keeping your iPads in the closet during the summer? If you don't have teacher iPads, let them take them home. And so I took that back to my admin and I said, why are we keeping our iPads in the closet? They're just sitting there. And thankfully, all the admin at Flat Rock were really like, you're right, why are we? No one has ever thought of this before. So we implemented this really cool program to let the teachers take them home over the summer, and then in return, they kind of did like an iPad 10 things. Now they have the Michigan iPad 21 things for iPad, but we did a Flat Rock one, and it was a really, we offered summer professional development, face-to-face if they wanted to come in and learn, and we got some teachers to come in. And I felt like, or from what I understood, I left that summer, but from what I understood, the teachers came back and the iPad carts were checked out every day, and they, really just, they took it and ran with it, and they finally could get their, hands wet with these iPads. They weren't just overcrowded, and they had time to work on them. So it was really beneficial for them to take them home. And I felt like, you know, I was making a difference in what they were learning and what they were doing. And when I applied for this position, it was really a big selling point for me. Like, hey, have affected all these teachers. Let me go into this position and work with teachers to change their attitudes and you know, to shift this culture in your district. So it was a really, I'm just happy that I was able to, move into this position because I really have been able to affect, on any given day, I'm in 4 buildings and I have, contact with 8 to 10 teachers, and that is, 300 students, during the week, 1,500 students, whereas before I was just interacting with my own kids. So it was a real, this has been a really cool stepping stone for me.
So have you always been, like from the start, has technology integration, like educational technology, been a big part of your practice?
It has. I was just thinking about that because, I've been really nervous about this talking to you. And I've been thinking about, was I just a technology using teacher, or did I start to blend? And when I was in the elementary school, I was a technology using teacher. But when I moved into, we would have, I don't know, the typical fashion shows when you're walking down and, we would record it and then we made it into a video. The kids made it into a video and they would, post it on YouTube and share it with their friends. If a student didn't want to show up to the fashion show because they were nervous, I made them call in on my Google Voice number to tell me what they would say. Leave me a voicemail, tell me what they would say in the fashion show because they were just going to get out of it.
Right.
But as I, moved into the high school, they were really ready for something different. Like you can't just go into a class and say, look at me, I'm the teacher. You need to listen to what I say. You really have to have that respect for the kids and, learn about them and what they're doing and what they're interested in. And that kind of caused a mind shift for me. And so we moved into a paperless classroom. And I kind of did my classroom as a self-paced course. Everything was online for the kids to utilize. And if they wanted to move ahead, they could. And that provided them, I would conference with the kids and talk to them about where they were at in their learning. And then from there, we would move into, a more rigorous curriculum for those select few kids. And the kids that needed more help, I would work with them as well. To me, that seemed like it was just so natural for the kids. And it was really helpful for them. And it seemed like they took a lot away from it. And I got some feedback from them at the end and it seemed like they really liked it. So yeah, I would say I've always been a technology user. But I think we both have the same master's degree, right?
Yeah, we're both
Mate grads.
Yeah, we're both
Yeah.
mate grads.
All right. So my senior year when I got my bachelor's from MSU too. My senior year when I was student teaching, senior student teaching, my mentor teacher said to me, you know what, Kerry, you need to go and get your master's degree in something that you're going to add a certification for. Don't get your master's degree in Spanish because you already have your Spanish certification. Do something that works for you and that you can, if they cancel the Spanish program, get a degree that you can still work in the district with. So I'm like, all right, well, I need to figure this out. So as I actually started my master's degree the same year that I started teaching because I knew I wanted to get it over with because, all teachers get their master's degrees or work towards it, throughout their lives. So I was like, well, let's just add this. I heard about the MATE program. And so I started it in 2009 and finished it in 2011. And in 2011, when I finished it, they canceled the Spanish program. It was like, holy cow, this is, thank you, mentor teacher from my senior year for, getting that in my head. But it just seemed like the next step for me because I am so involved in ed tech, but it took it to a level that I never thought, and I'm sure you agree, that I never thought that I could ever be at in regard to educational technology and theory. And it was a life-changing decision to take, to get that master's degree. Do you agree?
Oh, I absolutely agree. It's profound the impact that program has had on me as an educator, and I know that my experience and our experience is not unique. There's an immense sense of community around that program, and it's so much more than, I mean, not only is it steeped in great learning theory and great instructors who support a creative space, but all the people that participate in it really form a great learning community, right?
Right.
And I think the thing for me is when I was participating in those courses, it was my first experience learning completely online because I didn't do any face-to-face stuff. So I was taking online courses for the first time, and what better online courses to take than those, to have that be your first experience doing that. And what I found myself doing is not only learning lots of stuff from the lessons and the conversations and everything that was included in these courses, but the design of the courses themselves. I started being able to recognize what was going on here. And I started looking at curriculum design in a whole different way. In this, like, course design in an online setting is so much more detailed, and it's so much more predictive because it has to be, right? You have to put so much more into the course itself ahead of time than you do when you're a face-to-face teacher, and you can kind of just wing it and adapt as you go. And that's one of the beauties about the face-to-face environment, is that adaptability. And I'm not saying that that's not a good thing at all. I mean, that is the reason why I don't think that face-to-face environment will ever be totally replaced, is because it's so rich and it's so great for helping out students who need individualized feedback and timely feedback at the moment that maybe they don't always they're not always able to recognize when they need to communicate that they need help. And so you being able to identify it just speeds it up a lot more in the face-to-face environment. Plus, bringing students together to collaborate in the face-to-face environment, there's less of a barrier, right? But I started to see how these courses were designed, and that in addition to one of the courses was completely designed in an online learning environment, right? I forget what the
K-12 online learning or something.
Yeah, and so I spent so many hours in Moodle, and it forced me to get in there to really think about how I was going to design this thing, and all the while I was thinking about the courses that I had taken in MSU was using Angel at that time, right? And then and then also later on, Punya's designing course was their own WordPress instance, and that changed my view of what an online learning environment could be, because now I had all this experience of learning in LMS, and an LMS is a shell and you fill it and everything like that. And now I was taking this course that was built out of a blogging platform that was retrofit for that. And I felt like it worked even better than some of the LMS experience I had. So I just fell in love with the design of online learning, and I tried to turn my 7th grade social studies classroom into a complete online class that just happened to meet in this physical environment. I started seeing my physical environment more as like a resource room kind of thing, like a coffee shop kind of feel. And
yes.
The place where friends come and meet. We have great conversations, and everyone works on the stuff that they've got to work on. And so to answer your question simply, it completely changed my perception of what education could be. And like you, I came in with strong technology sensibilities, right? Like I grew up enjoying being online and participating in conversations there, learning from online resources. And they weren't as vast as they are now. They weren't as accessible and as vibrant and as engaging as they are now. But I really was an online learner, but kind of just making up my own rules.
And I still think kids do that today, though,
Yeah,
They
I
do.
think that when you organically come into being, you've got to be a learner first before you can take a course.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you don't necessarily have to, but like kids that have a degree of understanding of how they can find resources online and intuitively do that, they take well to the environments that you were describing where a lot is left up to them to be creators. A lot of them it's left up to them to be aggregators of information, right?
Right. Yeah, it's definitely one of the big things I feel like kids who can understand learning, like understand how to learn, do much better in any environment. Like when you're saying these kids that are coming into this program, they are, those who understand how to learn online or who have, learned something online already are much more, they are looking at this environment and saying, oh, I understand this. I get it. And I feel like, though, that's the majority today rather than the minority.
Yeah. You were talking about the shift from when you were a technology using teacher to more of a blended, it's not blended instructor, but it's
Right.
Blended facilitator almost, right?
Yeah,
you were talking
that's a good
about
word.
how students were taking ownership of projects and kind of doing their own thing. I wonder, like, what was the shift in your instructional design that allowed them to do that? Was it just kind of you saying, okay, we're going to figure this out together? Like what, how did you shift? Like what did you have to let go of and what did you have to relearn how to do? Like what did you start doing differently yourself that kind of shifted a lot of the control off of your shoulders? Like a lot of the responsibility for learning as a technology using teacher is still squarely on the shoulders of the teacher to disseminate knowledge, right?
Yeah. I started that semester out as a technology using teacher. And, I was this sage on the stage and, in front of the classroom and teaching these kids and they just look so dang bored. Oh my God. It was, hard to see that. And I also was thinking about, these kids, they're intelligent human beings. You just have to, in my opinion, number one is creating that relationship with these kids, making sure that they know that I respect them and in return hoping that they, I'm doing everything I can to have them respect me. And so looking at that, when I started the semester, I was not doing everything I could to help them respect me.
Yeah.
Or to help my cause. So I had to change. I had to do something. And that being that sage on the stage, I knew wasn't working. And so for me to start thinking about letting go, I had only been teaching. That was my 4th year teaching. So I had only been teaching for 3 years. And it's a lot easier if you're brand new to things to kind of like get out of the habit. Whereas if you've been teaching for a lot longer, it's harder to let go, I would say. So for me, I just was like, all right, let's do it. I'm going to be the guide on the side now. I'm going to just help you guys out and see what, you can learn. And so just by that word facilitator is a really great word, facilitating these kids and helping guide them, but not really, providing learning targets and goals. And, this is what I want from you, but I don't care how you get there as long as you get there. And I think that's huge right now is kind of letting kids be their own learners and just allowing them to take their own path to getting to the same, outcome. And so I did a lot of that in my classroom. I mean, that's really all I did. And they seem to really roll with it.
So it's kind of like, here's our learning target and here are resources and you need to be able to demonstrate your mastery of it. Ready, go.
Yes, but not so. It wasn't, it's easy to say, learn this, right? There's such a better process than that, or I tried to make a better process than that, just, by, I don't know, just by guiding them, and if they had questions, we'd take care of it, and small group work, based on what learning style they had, or, focusing on the kids that, the lower kids, pairing them up, or making sure my seating arrangement had, the high-level learners with the students that were struggling right next to each other so that they could lean on each other. And, I hate when teachers are like, no, ask me the question. I would encourage so much. Look, you have an expert right next to you who knows how to do this. Ask them, right? Ask them, because they may see, they're your age. They may see something that I'm not even seeing, that you don't understand, and that I can't understand in the same language that they do. So, lean on them for help, and then come to me, let me know, but I'm just here to help. It was the environment that I was able to create was really one of collaboration. It was really cool to see.
Creating a culture of
It was sad to walk
collaboration
away.
Yeah. Yeah, I bet. I'm not going to go into my tearful goodbyes from leaving the classroom. But yeah, I mean, anyone that's walked that road to move into a leadership position from the classroom misses the kids terribly.
Right.
Misses those day-to-day interactions. Yeah. What was I going to say? Building a culture of collaboration is a really difficult process. I think oftentimes the practical method of getting students to collaborate for many educators is to build it into instructional strategies. Mm-hmm. Your classic active learning strategies where you're jigsawing responsibilities and really structuring heavily what interactions are going to look like and kind of forcing students to interact in a certain way. It'd be really irresponsible to say that those kinds of forced instructional strategies are completely useless in building collaborative sensibilities in students. But I don't think that it necessarily translates into something that they own, something that they internalize and project without having those rigid expectations there for them. And
I think that's a really great way to say that, Jeff. That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah, so when you're going about culture building, it really is all about rapport, and it is about building trust between people. And really, cultures of collaboration are when students recognize that they need help and they go about receiving it in their own unique ways, right? We can be there to say, hey, here's a suggestion, but it's got to be really tailored to their need. We can't always predict what collaborative needs are going to be. And so when I think of blended learning, I mean, from a top level, I think of greater student control over pace, place, path, and time. But what I really think about is I think about conversations between teacher and students amongst students. And those are all feedback sessions. I just think that rich feedback, not because it's required, but because it's helpful to my work, and it's good to help others in their work because I'm going to learn from helping them as well.
Right.
That's easier said than done. I'm saying this like that's the way that you should do it, and you should abandon instructional strategies. Instructional strategies are easily identified. We can build it, and it all comes from our minds. But we should be considerate of those moments where you can suggest to a student, hey, why don't you go ask so-and-so? Why don't you do this? Have you tried sharing your document with particular people? Who do you want to share your document with? Who would you like feedback from on this work? Those are important conversations to have with our students because otherwise they're just going through the motions. I hate when I see so many students that are just doing things because it's what's expected of them. The end goal of learning should always be learning. And sometimes we try to get so into extrinsic ways of motivating students to just get work done, when really we should be focused on our learning targets and then having conversations and implementing strategies that support students to kind of wonder about them, kind of see themselves in it and go on that personal journey of learning, because that's the only way that learning can be meaningful to me anyway.
Yeah, I completely agree. I love the end goal of learning should always be learning. I love that.
So what we don't need to go too much into detail about it, but you're employed by Oakland Schools, and then you're basically, you're contracted out. Is that something? I mean, the nature of Oakland County is that you've got such a huge county and monstrous school districts. So it would make sense that, like, if you're supporting an area, it could just be, Southfield's a huge district to support, right?
Yeah, it's been a really cool experience. Basically, they started a shared services model 2 years ago. Well, I guess almost 3 years ago, and they go in and they work with the districts to become their technology servicer. And so all of the technology departments are serviced by Oakland Schools. And there's 6 districts right now, I believe, that are under the technology services model for Oakland Schools. And so what we have, we've moved them into Google Apps for Education. And, in some of our districts, all of our teachers have iPads and Apple TVs. And along with the technology upgrades that they've been doing, they also offer the technology integration specialist to come in and work with the teachers. And so one of my colleagues is in 3 districts, another colleague is in a district half-time, and then I'm in Southfield 100% of the time. And it's just been a really neat experience being in the position that I have, working, for Oakland Schools with the technology, on the technology side, but also still being able to interact with the teachers and really make a difference for them as well.
I think that it's an interesting model to me, just because it's not something that everyone's outrageously familiar with, right?
No, it's not at all, and it's definitely been a challenge. Because they had relationships, and so we've really had to work hard on building their trust and getting, into these buildings and showing our faces and making sure that they know we're here for them and, we care about you, and we, we're here to make sure that your students are succeeding and that you're succeeding as well. So it's been different, and I actually thought that we were the only the only ISD doing a shared services model, but I was talking to Keith Tramper, and I'm not sure if you know who he was. He was on my Team Hug team for the EdTech rally.
Okay.
And he works for a shared services model too, as insofar as tech integration goes. And he's on the west side of the state. So they're all over. I just don't think it's, as you said, there's just not a lot of information out about it.
This is not the first time someone else's name has been brought up in one of these casts. And then afterwards, I feel like I gotta go meet people. And I sincerely, part of the reason for most of the reason for doing this podcast is to just let people's voices be heard and great stories shared, because a lot of times teacher stories just don't get the voice that they deserve, right? So a lot of it's that, but I find I build relationships, like talking to you right now, I feel like our personal relationship has grown. You know what I mean? So,
yeah, oh yeah.
So that's, selfishly, I just love talking to different educators doing interesting things, and then I ask way too many questions to try to understand fully, because you're never going to understand completely someone else's situation. But you talked about coming in and really trying to show that, basically you're good guys, right? That you're there to help. You have a similar mindset to them as far as teaching and learning goes. But really, you as the person that works most closely with teachers really have to be the face for that.
Absolutely. I know. And we have techs that are very familiar with our teachers as well, and they have a really good rapport. But I am out there making a name for, our shared services model. And, every day I'm, showing these teachers, hey, this is a positive experience for you. I want you, I understand where you're coming from. And in a tech integration position, in my opinion, I have so much more rapport with the teachers when I say, I was a teacher. I get it. Or I joke with them, like, because you have so much time, right? It just, they just kind of open up. Oh, you do get it. You do understand. I get it. So, I mean, that has been my saving grace, I think, is the fact that I can say, when I was teaching, this really worked for me. Or, as I grew as a teacher, I did this, and they kind of perk up and say, oh, okay, I guess I'll listen to you.
Yeah, I mean, let's be generous and say it's only been within the last decade that these roles even existed.
They're huge
and
now.
and
Yeah.
that's being generous with the time frame. It's
Right.
smaller than that. Before that time period, and even in districts that don't have good people in those positions, it very much is still the IT department works at night and makes changes without really knowing what we're doing instructionally with things, and the head's not talking to the rest of the body kind of scenario there. And so like that's the climate that you come into. I mean, a lot of do you ever feel like you struggle between having your instructional voice heard or having your instructional chops valued versus being seen as another tech support person?
I think that my team has really helped me make it so that I am the instructional person. I do not do anything in regard to tech unless it really, techs or like the techs do, unless it is going to hinder my lesson that I'm doing with the teacher, then we fix it right then.
Right.
But yeah, they have really been supportive, and no, she is your, instructional technology coach. Make sure that you're, you know, working with her to do this and this and this and this. And if a teacher says my printer's broken, it doesn't phase me to say, I just that let's put a ticket in for you to have that fixed, unless
Right.
it's something that I'm doing DARs or whatever those things are called, and I need to DRAs, and I need to print them off right now. And then I say, let's Google how to fix it, because I really don't know what I'm doing, but we can figure it out.
It's refreshing to hear that. I mean, I think sometimes the mentality, if you come into something new, and 2 years in is probably sufficient amount of time to really start changing some people's mindsets. But sometimes technology use in education can seem like a foreign, an outside force that is disconnected from instruction, right?
Mhm.
And I mean, obviously, coming from a TPAC mindset and knowing the philosophy that you have, you probably don't even recognize that. You instinctively bring it back to a conversation about all three things, and not just the technology knowledge
Right.
that your position really is created because you have a strong sense of technology application, right?
Right.
And sometimes, a teacher might say, I'm the pedagogical and content expert. And that's my turf. Just give me some things I can use for this. And I think that can be beneficial, but it's really I've found that my interactions with teachers are much more meaningful when it's like, here is teaching and learning. Let's figure this out together.
Right. And the really cool part about Southfield, I would send my kids here. These teachers are so well knowledge. Like, they just have so much good pedagogy, and they are all content experts. And I'm not like understating it. Like, you walk into a building and you have nationally certified teachers and teachers that are pursuing their PhDs because they care that much. And it's amazing to see that. And so it's easy for me to go into a building and say, you have this pedagogy, you have this content. Let's, integrate this technology in a meaningful way in your classroom. But, let's not just say this is technology. Like, you're using technology. Like, let's think about the thought process. And I'd really like to sit down with you and, work with you for a month and, help you see my thought process as I, use technology in my curriculum as well, and the who and why and, how. And so they've been really receptive to that. And I do get teachers that are like, look, I get it. Just tell me something that I can use. And I'm okay with that, but
Yeah.
there's also the teachers that are, oh, look, I know we have these iPads. I don't just want the kids to play on them. And I'm like, I don't want them to play on them either.
Yeah.
So it's been really neat to see the culture shift that's going on in Southfield. They are so interested and on board with technology now. And it's been a really cool experience for me to see it all kind of come to light. And I don't know if we'll ever, I mean, they will never stop learning. And it just seems like every year you get down a level. You're like adding more and more of the TPAC model into the culture of Southfield, the SAMR model into the culture of Southfield. And so it's just been a really, I don't know, I keep saying neat, but it's just really cool to see it all happen.
It just sounds like a great group of people to be working with. I mean, to
They
have that
are
kind of
awesome.
mindset.
Yeah, they're really awesome.
So here's my second question.
Okay.
And we probably touched on it a little bit already, but I'll ask it anyway. Is there anything we haven't talked about that you're working on right now that's particularly exciting to you, that you're really jazzed about?
Well, actually, I wanted to talk to you about it a little bit, and not necessarily during the podcast, but on the side is the Southfield Regional Academic Campus is pursuing a blended model, and I really wanted to work with you to make sure that it's done correctly.
Okay.
And so I was hoping that we could talk about that a little bit, maybe after the podcast or now, whatever you prefer. But it's right at the beginning stages, so I'm really excited about that. And see a couple other things. For our shared services model, we are pushing to have a admin conference this year for the admin in our districts, and I'm really excited about that because I feel like the admin, they're my first line of support when it comes to working with the teachers. If the admin support it, the teachers support it. And I've seen that in the district. I'm in many buildings, I'm welcome. And in some buildings, there's just this idea that, oh, we got this. And I respect that. But by getting the admin on board, they can really see the benefit of us. So that's been really fun to look at as well. We do a teacher-to-teacher technology rally for our teachers in our shared services districts, and the teachers present, and then other teachers come, and it's been really great for the teachers because they're, getting what they're doing in their classrooms, which is it's unheard of, right? I mean, we don't get to go into other teachers' classrooms and see what they're doing.
Right.
And so this is a really cool thing that the teachers get to come in and do. And that's with my colleagues. There's three of us that are tech integrationists, myself, Allison Dewar, and Lauren Villaluz. And we all are planning with that stuff together. So it's been fun working with them. I mean, we work together all the time, but it's been fun planning something that's not really, it's kind of like a side note to our daily job. We're also working on a PD hub, and we're going to start talking to Kit Hard about his ideas of PD hubs, like virtual online learning for the teachers, just to kind of have a place to go. So we're interested.
It's interesting. He was talking about that, and I'm sorry for cutting you off.
No.
We're putting out his podcast today where he was talking a little bit about his PD model with that. So.
Oh, cool.
That's kind of interesting that you bring that up. He's fantastic and has a lot of great ideas, but more so than just the ideas, like the way that he goes about putting them into practice is just fascinating to me, that he can, he's such a dreamer and yet make things come to reality. So
I know.
Fantastic guy.
That has been a really, at least in my position, I've really noticed it's opened a lot of doors for me. And so I'm happy that I took it, because I was able to sit, I planned the Ed Tech rally and, work with all these amazing people around the state that I've been able to, really network with. And I feel like this past McCall conference was the most amazing that I've had yet. Like I was just able to do so much. And, I went to 2 sessions the whole time because I was networking with everyone and I was, volunteering in the mate booth and I, helped with the makerspace on Friday. It was just such a blast there.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Oh man. I don't know. No. I'm sure there's lots and lots of things that I'm not even touching base on. We've just been, oh, okay. How about this? So I have been piloting a flipped professional development model with one of my admin, which has been, I love the outcome of all of the teachers in her building. They just expect this. She puts out a video before their Monday PDs. What are those called? Staff meetings.
Yeah.
And so they really, I know I'm like out of it. They really have loved this whole like flipped video model that we've been doing. And, she puts it out and then the teachers watch it and then they just kind of reply if they have any questions and they can do actual learning at their staff meeting instead of all of the, here's the dates that you need for testing and look at these accolades for these teachers and, reminder, stand in the hallway during, your 5-minute break in between classes. So that's been really cool to do too. And it's something that I'm going to start pushing for other admin to do.
Are the videos setting the stage for the activities that are going to go on in the staff meeting then? Or are they is it just kind of pushing out announcement stuff? So
It's both.
Okay.
It's both.
So there's some announcements, just some housekeeping stuff that it is greatly served in just a video format so that it's done and over with. But then there's also like introducing something, think about this. And then when they come to the staff meeting, is it generally just a PLC model then?
No, well, it's relatively structured, on what they're doing, mission and vision, or, think about this for our mission and vision before you come with edits that you would make, or let's talk about, these things and groups or.
I gotcha. And that's really helpful because then you're utilizing that time. The teachers are leading that time. The content has been dictated through the video and has been established, and you had some time to think about it, and then we get down to business because your call to action is, would you change anything about this? What do you think about this? How can we realistically apply this kind of stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it's worked out really well.
Well, hey, thanks so much for joining me today, and man, I really look forward to learning more together in the future.
Thanks, Jeff. I appreciate you having me.
Thanks for listening to MyBlend Stories. For more, visit myblend.org.